Now, lamb shanks are one of those dishes that are like the granddaddy of slow cooking. They're succulent, they're cheap, and they go with almost anything. And the great thing about them, they're a set and forget recipe. Get them started in the morning, and then you got dinner with no effort. I like getting a big pot going on because I like adding heaps and heaps of ingredients to it. Good, thick base, whether it's cast iron or a crock pot like I have here. You just want something that can handle heat, whether it's on the stove top or in the oven for hours and hours at a time. Always start your pan off on high heat at this point in time. Extra virgin olive oil, about 2 or 3 tablespoons. And this is important because it's a conduit for heat. So as we're building up flavour at the start of this recipe, you want the olive oil to be able to transfer everything into the lamb shanks and into the sauce. Lamb shanks in, now I may have to do this in batches depending on how big your pot is. I reckon I'll squeeze 3 in there easily. About 2 teaspoons of salt at this stage. Now it's really important to build up the salt throughout the slow cooking process, because if you go to season it at the end, after 5-6 hours of cooking, you're not going to get the same level of seasoning as you would as if you build it up from the start. While the lamb shanks brown off, I'm going to get the other ingredients ready. So I have a capsicum and an onion. Now the start of so many good recipes begin with these 2 ingredients. I use a capsicum in place of chili. It adds that lovely, deep, complex flavour to any sauce you're going to make without the heat. So for those of you that are chili sensitive or don't like too much spice, like my stepdad Eric, he's Dutch, he only likes butter and parsley, so capsicum's a good substitute for him. So all you want to do is just tap the seeds out like that, and that's an easy way to just get rid of the seeds. Pick the stem out of the top, get rid of that, and just give them a good chop. At this stage, it's personal preference how you want to cut the capsicum and the onion, because after 5 hours of cooking, they're going to become succulently tender and melt into the sauce. The great thing about slow cooking is that if you're not confident with your skills in the kitchen, it's possibly the easiest method you could attempt, and you're going to get the best flavour out of all cooking styles. So for those of you that are a bit scared and you've got a dinner party coming up, I would always recommend slow cooking something. Okay, capsicum's done. Let's get this onion chopped up. I can hear my lamb shanks starting to sizzle, so I'll give them a turn in a minute, and we can basically dump all the ingredients into this big crock pot and let the flame do all the work. This is what I love about slow cooking. You spend 10 or 15 minutes in the kitchen right at the start of the day, and that's all the work you have to do. Always good for those people that are really busy and time poor. Okay, lamb shanks, I can smell them. They're starting to brown off. They're getting a good sizzle. So I'm just going to keep turning them around till they're golden brown, and we can start building up this lovely braised lamb shank dish. You can see the capsicum and onion are just becoming tender. I haven't got much colour on them, and I don't want any at this point in time. This is going to cook for hours, and the sugars within those capsicum and onion are going to caramelise over that amount of time. So colour, not important. Flavour, you'll get that. So let's just start building up the spice component of this. I have some paprika, some garlic and some cinnamon. I originally got this combination of spices and dried fruit from over in Dubai. I was cooking in the desert there, and dates, paprika, cinnamon, garlic, they're just something else. Now paprika, you could use smoked paprika if you want, but I find sweet paprika's perfect in this recipe. Couple of teaspoons, and that's gonna add that lovely red color to the final sauce. You'll smell your spices go from a raw flavor to a sweet, nutty caramel smell in a matter of minutes. And that's when you know you can start adding the rest of your ingredients. I'm adding the cinnamon stick last because I don't want to bruise it and get shards of cinnamon all through my pot. So what I'm going to do is just sit it in there to the side once I know everything's ready. I have about half a cup of dates here. Now dates work with red meat so well, whether it's beef or lamb or even goat. They release their natural sugars into your sauce, so you don't have to worry about adding brown sugar or caster sugar to season it up. You get this lovely deep caramel flavour just from something so simple. And they're going to break down over hours of cooking. Now a tin of chickpeas drained, you could put raw soaked ones in if you wanted to. A tin of crushed tomatoes, a good glug, now about a cup of chicken stock, really builds up the flavour in this dish. Give that a stir now. And you don't need lots of liquid in this dish because you've got to remember, when you're slow cooking, protein is about 70% water. So it's going to release its own juices into the liquid. You're going to get all that sauce from the shanks themselves. Just nestle the shanks back into this stock. Make sure you get all the juices off your resting plate. Bit of pepper straight over. Black pepper works really well in this recipe. Goes well with dates and lamb and capsicum. About half a teaspoon. Lid on and turn the heat down as low as you can. Now that's going to simmer for about 2 hours or until the lamb shanks are meltingly tender. And once they're ready, we're going to get started on the couscous salad, which is the perfect accompaniment. Our lamb shanks are meltingly tender. They've cooked for almost 2 hours, and I've turned the heat off about 10 minutes ago, just to let them cool down a touch, absorb all those aromatic, sweet flavors from the dates and the spices. In the meantime, I've made some couscous. So I boiled just over 2 cups of stock, and I've poured that over 2 cups of couscous. Always use a fork for this because you don't want big claggy lumps of couscous when you serve it up. Just fork it through, and as you can see, it becomes nice and light and fluffy, and that's exactly how you want to serve couscous to your guests. Now I have some hazelnuts. Adds obviously a lovely textural element to your dish. You'll commonly find nuts in a lot of Moroccan and Middle Eastern cooking. There we go. About 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup of hazelnuts if you're measuring it out. And parsley. Now parsley adds a touch of freshness to anything you've cooked. A good handful of parsley straight in. Now we don't have to season this with salt because the masala chicken stock is lovely and rich in flavour, but we do want some freshly cracked black pepper straight in. You want this on the bottom of your dish because you want it to soak up the sauces that have braised in this pot for hours on end. Now get one of these lovely lamb shanks straight into our bowl, and look at those colours. Look at those chickpeas, capsicum, onion. Make sure you get lots of the sauce. We've spent hours letting that tick away, and that's where most of the flavour is. Possibly one of the easiest braises you'll attempt because it is so simple. If you're worried about wowing your guests at the next dinner party, try something that cooks for hours on the stovetop or oven.